We are live at the moment.
Yeah, great. Okay. Well, happy Tuesday, everyone. Buva, I am so excited. We're only 10 days away from the Emerald Summit. How do you feel?
Both excited as well as very much nervous because it's a very big event for us.
Yes, yes. And without further ado, of course, we're going to introduce you again, Buva Shakti, with the founder of Wallet Max and the creation of the Emerald Summit. Let's tell a little bit about the background of the summit before we dive into today's questions.
Sure. Thanks, Tia. Thanks, everyone, for joining us today. I'm the founder and CEO at Wallet Max. Quick intro. After 3 decades on Wall Street, I shifted into venture capital to back startups that are shaping our future in tech, AI, fintech, and sustainability. We do monthly events, but this is our flagship once a year during New York Climate Week, the Emerald Summit, which comes with startup awards as well as an executive dinner. Our goal is not just to have some theoretical discussions and see you next year. Rather, we connect founders, investors, and executives in one room into actually taking action. How can we fund solutions? How can we action policies? How can we make an effect starting from that day through every day and not wait until the next year?
This is so great. This is great. And what I have to say too, I'm sorry everyone, my name is Tia Green Granger. I am the founder of Leva PR and I have the honor to work with Buva. So thank you, Buva, for inviting me to ask you these questions today. Thank you.
Thank you, Tia.
All right. So, with today's questions, I know that we have so many amazing panels that are going to be very insightful. And I just wanted the community to know a little bit the background of why you chose these panels for you for this upcoming summit. So, what motivated you to bring the from threads to transformation panel to the summit?
Yeah, before we go into the threads to transformation panel, I'll give a quick rundown of what we were aiming for in the lineup of panels this year.
Okay.
And amazing speakers, we have about 40 odd speakers, 15 odd programs. The whole theme is not just using technology for climate, because, like I've said repeatedly, climate is going to be impacting every industry, every sector, and every geography, whether you are really causing the positive impact or negative impact, it affects all of us together at the same time. So that's why we start the day with a circular economy panel, also known as From Threads to Transformation. The goal is how can we eliminate some of the waste, but also promote reuse and repair. Do we even have infrastructure to do those things? And we talk a lot about sustainable fashion and related manufacturing and other waste management solutions, and how AI and other fintech solutions can support some of this circular economy. Then, additionally, we also have panels around climate resilience. So, in our last LinkedIn Live, we spoke about mitigation, but even though we are trying to mitigate, we also need to be prepared in a climate risk perspective from an adaptation and resilience perspective. So, we're going to talk about a lot of tips and tricks on things that day to day people can do in terms of being adaptive and resilient, in addition to mitigating the climate challenges. So, a couple of other panels are also revolving around sustainable finance. So, how can we fund solutions not at their early stage? Of course, that's a very important focus. But once you have funded the early stage life cycle, how can you scale it beyond a series A, B, or even to an IPO? So, we'll be talking a lot about alternative investments in that sustainable finance panel. We are also showcasing a couple of local small businesses, because small businesses are at the forefront of mitigating some of the challenges, but they are also the first to be impacted. So that's also coming up. And additionally, we also have renewable energy. So energy is the core of climate change, but then we can't all transition out of fossil fuel overnight. What can we do on a step by step basis in a renewable energy, clean energy, natural resources energy, and ensure the transition is steady but also scaling as we move forward? So that's a whole lineup of everything we have, in addition to 12 startups from the climate tech space, AI, fintech space, that are pitching to a panel of venture capital investors that invest predominantly in sustainable solutions.
What I love about this is you're creating opportunities for everyone to be seen and heard and celebrated. So thank you, Buva. Thank you for creating this. But I want to
And
go back to that question. You're welcome. I want to go back to the question of the motivation of you bringing the from threads to transformation panel to the summit. I know you touched on a little bit, but I wanted you to go a little deeper.
yeah, so typically what happens is businesses are always using linear models where they take, make, and waste. For example, they take raw materials, they manufacture, they combine supply chains, they deliver a product or service, and then they kind of have a waste that goes into another life cycle, but that's not the problem of the business itself. In the US alone, we see more than 35% of large companies that have comprehensive circular strategies, but only 5% are really implementing it. So imagine 65% don't even have a strategy, and 95% don't even follow even a strategy that they have put together. So this is really important, not only in terms of trying to promote sustainable products and services, in terms of what we offer to our customers and stakeholders and neighborhoods and communities, but more importantly, once waste is generated, how do we eliminate it more responsibly? How can we promote recycling? How can we promote repair and reuse, but also promote profitability, right? So, as an example, if you take aluminum, if you recycle aluminum, it can sustain 100,000 US jobs annually. It can generate $1.6 billion, and it can also save enough energy to power 1.5 million homes. So, in this scenario, you're taking generated waste to create more jobs, to provide more energy, and of course, make more money and have a planet that's more sustainable.
I just learned something new. I love that. Whoa. Okay. Now, and that actually leads into why do you believe the circular economy is a crucial topic for today's businesses? And you just said that. That is the reason why.
Yeah, profitability along with the value, limited resources, how can we repurpose without losing our profits?
Wow. Okay. So, as we know, it is a real world impact. How do you see the transition to a circular economy benefiting businesses and communities?
Yeah, so one of the things everyone tries to talk about is okay, we have to do a 2 year plan, think about a strategy, and by the time the plan goes into effect, things have changed, and now you are recreating the plan. Rather, what we can do is start small, think about things that are very affordable for us. In an example, let's say you're watching, like recently we had the US Open tennis, you are in a stadium, you can easily opt for reusable cups. You can divert millions of disposable waste into responsible waste elimination. Communities or companies that are doing this work on a day-to-day basis for a for-profit basis. You can also promote customer loyalty by trying to keep reuse and repair as part of your product and solutions. As an example, many would have heard of Patagonia, which is a sustainable company, a B Corp company. They are a global leader in some of the outdoor gear, but they also promote quite prominently, if you want to return it or eliminate it, come give it to us and we'll do it responsibly. And you can also get paid for that. And that's the same thing that we have using reusable models with Apple products and other electronics, right? So these are small things that big companies can enforce and also help their employees and customers to start doing on a day-to-day basis, instead of trying to wait for a 2 year plan, trying to create a strategy like we saw in the earlier statistic. Even though strategies exist, it is not meaningful to operationalize. So starting small and then going from iterating and improving and adding more to that is a more sustainable strategy.
And those are the positive changes that I feel like you are hoping to highlight during the panel, is what you just touched on.
Yes, so the entire day is going to be real action oriented tips for people to follow on a day to day basis, for businesses to implement starting that day at the summit, instead of trying to wait for a long term. Because if you are able to do small changes within your community or business, every day, that is a much better long-term sustainable impact than trying to, fix the world overnight.
Yeah. And what you're doing is you're building a community so we could do this together and not alone.
Yes,
And it's a
exactly.
ripple effect.
So it's a ripple effect because, like I mentioned at the start, if there is air pollution in Canada, people in New York have to shut down their houses for 2 days. So it's not something that's isolated within your community or locality.
Yes. Now, what common challenges in implementing a circular practices do you expect will be addressed? And why is it important for businesses to know how to overcome them?
Yeah, so one of the biggest challenge is how can you show the financial profit or gains from following these practices, right? Because traditionally in a business return on investment or a traditional ROI models do not really track how we are gaining or eliminating expenses and saving money on operational costs or expanding profit margins through these kind of circular economy or sustainable practices. So that's one thing we need to think about in terms of how we can bring one or two of these sustainable metrics into your expenses and income sheet. So typically what you can do as an example, let us say you are implementing a solar panel in your building, be it an office building, house, or a manufacturing plant, whatever you choose to do that with. The solar panels are going to reduce your electricity or energy consumption, which in turn impacts your operating expenses. Your operating expenses goes down, which means even at the same income, your operating expenses have gone down, which means your profit margin is higher. Even considering this is a really important change to your traditional ROI model that businesses can start thinking about. We'll be talking about that more as well. It's not trying to create a brand new framework. It's about while you're increasing your income, if you are decreasing your operational expense for the long term, that provides better air quality, water, and other good things for your community and your employees and stakeholders, then that is also driving your profitability. So that part is not in the traditional ROI calculation. So other things are also sometimes we are talking about short-term gains and trying to circumvent regulatory compliance challenges. But when you think for the long term, it is not about working towards climate technology or sustainability, rather how you are building resilience for your business itself to stand long term, even when supply chain shocks come in, right? So those are things that we are typically not considering in the traditional ROI model. So if you're thinking about uninterrupted supply chain, reuse, recycle, repair, reducing expenses, these things automatically increase your financial viability, but making it more visible to your stakeholders is what's important. So a lot of companies these days, including the Patagonia example I mentioned, are creating sustainability reports or impact reports on a yearly basis, in addition to their annual profit loss statements. So you will see a direct correlation of implementing a sustainable framework or process in their organization that directly affects profits in a positive way.
Wow. And that leads right into designing, right? Like what the products are going to look like. Why do you think product design is a key component of the circular economy? And how do you hope to encourage innovative thinking among attendees?
Yeah, so one of the common things, and not only circular design or economy, any type of product design is typically, if we are short sighted or nearsighted, which means you're building something you want to launch and then you want to do patchwork to fix the design. And that is more costly in terms of lost time and lost efficiency in terms of resources and additional cost when you are in the market. And of course it affects your customer loyalty as well, because people are not going to buy your product second time without thinking twice
Yeah.
because you've rolled out a product that didn't meet their requirements. So similarly, circular design is another aspect, right? So you can't have circular design as an afterthought. It should be part of design first approach. It should be part of
Mhm.
your circular blueprint. The product, when you design, automatically should have usability, accessibility, as well as circularity in its design before it goes to the market. If we are not able to do that, then when the customers are not able to effectively use your product, it could again make you recall your products. It'll cause loss. You'll have to be paying fines or fees, and you could be also sued legally for regulatory reasons as well as affecting people's usability. So instead of trying to do all this to the later part of the product cycle after launching and trying to make it a cosmetic add-on, it is recommended, like every other design principle, like usability and accessibility, include circularity as part of design first principle before the product or service is being developed and put into customers' hands, so that you can preserve customer loyalty, and also it's going to impact investors, right? So if customers are
Yes.
not happy, you're not going to get enough investors to continue to run your business for the long term and expanding markets.
And you know something, when it comes to the consumer engagement, how important is that behavior to the shift itself?
Yeah, so it may be surprising that when businesses today are talking about, okay, I don't know if the customer needs it, there is data that has been repeatedly showcasing to us, especially post pandemic, that customers really want it, right? So if customers are asking for it, investors are pushing for it, and businesses are not meeting it, then we need to really rethink the business model. Who are you trying to serve? Right? So if you're building something for a customer who is expecting something else, if you're building something that doesn't provide enough return on investment in the long term, not short term, to your investors, then probably you're not really running the business for your investors and customers, rather maybe for yourself, right? Um, like I mentioned, the data already proves that customers are interested. And one of the things we want to also avoid is putting the burden on the customer to make a decision. If you are able to develop things, more products and services that are already sustainable and customer friendly, then the burden on the customer is very less. Then you can see that they are able to adopt up to 80 or 90% on a consistent basis. But if you are not considering this in your design or development of the product or service before you launch it to the market, then the burden is on the customer, and the customer has 100 choices, and they don't have time to think, are you the right fit for them? So you have to see that you are doing your part and also communicating with the customer, so that the burden on the customer in choosing your product is simple or less, so that the adoption and continuing to follow those practices is at least 80-90%, as the data shows today.
But it also helps with collaboration,
Yes,
because sometimes
definitely.
at times you collaborate with the consumer because the consumer is going to help out at the end of the day. So, in regards to collaborations, what opportunities for collaboration do you foresee arising from discussions at this panel?
Yeah, you rightly also mentioned about the collaboration, right? It's not only about customer adoption, but trust. You get free word of mouth organic marketing, because customers are going to tell others, hey, they like your product and it is really helpful and useful for them in terms of both their health benefits as well as what were they're trying to achieve from the product. Now, everything is going to be a collaboration. So, for example, the investors cannot just invest and let the startups run their businesses. The corporations cannot just build something and let the customers figure out everything. The collaboration is going to be really important, especially in a private market, between the public institutions or corporations, the big corporations. We need them to scale and also expand across geographies. And in the private market, we need investments from private investors, more on an agile basis, more on a quick investment basis. So if we are waiting for government grants, it may take so much time that the innovation may not be relevant in a couple of years by the time grant comes. And that's where the private markets are able to pitch in at any level, could be pre-seed even up until you're trying to do a merger and acquisition or even an IPO, which means it's really important for the organizations that are providing a sustainable product service, the investors, both in the private and public market, and also the corporations to help scale this. And we'll be talking about a lot of other communities like WalletMax as well, that promote this kind of collaboration. So, how can we bring all these people into one room and take action in one day is the goal.
And they're going to be networking as well. I mean, one of the rules that you have, Buva, and that's one of the things that I was drawn to is when you go to any of your events, you always have an ask and you always have something to give. So
Yeah.
it's the perfect recipe for success.
Yeah, exactly. So it cannot be like the startups are fundraising and they are asking something to the investors, because startups are also shopping for investors, which means even though you are able to write the check, are you the right fit for me? Is a question they would ask. Similarly, the executives that help scale some of these solutions should sit right in the middle between startups and investors that are in the private market, so they are able to collaborate. So if everyone is only having an ask, who's going to make the give so that the collaboration really works, right? So it's a rule in all our events, especially at the summit, that you'll see that everyone makes an ask and a give that's mutually beneficial, and doesn't matter how small or big, as long as it serves your purpose and helps you get to traction in the next 90 days. Don't ask for something that's for the next 3 years or 4 years. We need to see traction in 90 days.
Yes. I love that. Um, so, why is it essential for businesses to understand how to measure their circular economy initiatives, and what frameworks will be presented during this panel?
Yeah, so there are a lot of frameworks available in the industry, but you don't have to try to work through them and try to create or customize for your business. You can start small, like I earlier mentioned. Take the ROI framework that you use for your day to day business, adjust one or two metrics in terms of energy consumption, or savings in terms of better air cleaning or good water, or even saving in terms of healthcare expenses for your employees if they are in a very sustainable environment. So things like that could be easily implemented as one or two new metrics into your ROI models that exist today to start tracking tomorrow. Some of the advanced metrics are also known as ESG. So ESG is environmental, social, and governance. It is a direct quantitative data related risk metric framework that is supposed to measure environmental data along with the social and governance data. It is very directly related to how organizations measure performance, and it could be used for any type of organization, be it small scale or large, and it has variety of metrics within it. There are also a lot of sustainability standards known as SASB, Sustainability and Accounting Standards Board, that has metrics. There are indexes like S&P and others in the trading platform that have metrics. So find the one that chooses you, matches what you're trying to do. But even otherwise, you can start small by adding one or two expense and savings into your metrics today and see how the data evolves. But happy to talk more about this during our summit. We have a full panel talking just about quantitative data and metrics.
And will you be leading that panel?
I have some of our expert speakers leading the panel, and I'll be there through the day to support that.
Yes. Well, the next panel, which I'm really looking forward to just really tuning into this one, Building Climate Resilience, Accelerating Action to Weather the Anthropocene panel. So can you touch a little bit on what inspired you to create this panel?
Yeah, so it is very essential that we work towards mitigation, prevent, and proactively try to eliminate some of the challenges. But in certain areas, as we know already, things are already in the adaptation or resilience phase. As an example, we had the Texas floods a couple of months. Globally, we have seen increased level of heat waves. If I'm not mistaken, June was the hottest month on planet ever recorded so far in 2025. It's going to continue because last year that was the hottest, and this year it has surpassed last year in a more negative way. We've seen consistent floods and wildfires that are increasing in frequency and severity, and it's becoming very difficult to even proactively monitor and accurately predict. Sometimes we get so less time in terms of warnings that we are able to uh, not save as many lives lost, and billions are lost in damages due to the inaction. Not because we didn't know it's coming, but sometimes it comes too late, the warning that is not sufficient to save lives. Sometimes we are not even able to predict. So Our goal is, if a disruption happens, how can we ensure we act quickly? How can we ensure no lives are lost? How can we ensure we can have billions in savings in damages so that we are ready for it? It is not that are these going to occur anymore. We know these are going to occur. How soon and how better can we prepared for the disaster? So especially being prepared in terms of resilience saves us a lot of money and time and lives in terms of recovery after the event has occurred. So nowadays, we also see there are a lot of geopolitical and economic shocks globally that are volatile. So there is a lot of challenge between humanitarian perspective and a financial perspective. It is very important that people like us and communities like us are able to continue to take action. So we know that we need to prevent, but if it happens, how can we minimize damage to lives and money?
Yeah, wow. And just since you're mentioning this, I know that the entertainment industry is starting to tap in to what you're touching on based off of movies that they're putting out, so people are more aware of what's going on.
Yeah,
So
yeah, definitely. It's going to be affecting every industry and sector. So there is nothing like a climate as a separate industry. It is inbuilt into every sector.
yes, it does. Now, what key climate threats do you think are the most pressing for attendees to understand, and how will the panel address these challenges?
So, in this climate resilience panel, we'll be mostly talking about the big natural disasters that affect communities at large. Sometimes it could be extreme heat or compounding natural hazards or even water scarcity and so on and so forth. As an example, in the US alone, there were 25 separate billion-dollar climate disasters recorded in 2023. That means 25 different climate disasters happened that could have been prevented or damage could have been minimized, but we still spent more than $1 billion in recovery efforts after the damage has been done. Nowadays, these events are not like one off things. This is kind of becoming the new normal, right? So, we're going to be talking about how some of the resilient gaps are also impacting low income communities and disproportionately, right? So, where rural areas that lack infrastructure are mostly impacted in a natural disaster, whereas also sometimes businesses are not really prepared. So, sometimes you may have to shut down your business for long periods of time, or you may have to relocate your business as well because that area cannot be rebuilt due to a disaster. This also affects food prices, housing, healthcare, and so on and so forth. So, we'll be touching upon disaster preparedness and climate resilience and how we can be prepared, reduce damage to businesses and people lives, and also save money to use to rebuild economies instead of spending on recovery after the damage is done.
Wow. Again, impactful. And the roles of policy. So, how do you envision the role of policy in shaping climate resilience?
Yeah, so in climate resilience, at least policy is really critical, right? Because we are talking about scaling across communities, cities, states, countries, and regions and continents, which means from a private public sector, private investors can help invest in solutions, startups and small businesses can build solutions, corporations can additionally support with a partnership to scale it, but the scaling is not going to be really helpful until the government steps in or policies are shaped to help across communities because the governments, be it local, state, or federal, are responsible for disaster recovery. As an example, we have FEMA that helps, we have also private organizations like Red Cross, but none of them will be able to scale to the damage that exists if we don't have enough policies in place, government support in place. So, policies from a government perspective is really important. Policies are also very tightly related to regulations. So, if we don't have right set of regulations, then someone else's damage could affect someone else, even though they did not cause the damage. So, ensuring we have the right building codes, ensuring people are insured because sometimes even today in California and Florida insurance is being denied to both people, houses, as well as businesses, for the reason there is a recurrent flood and a hurricane and wildfire. So policy is the only one that can step in and say, hey, you need to really insure them, right? So this is where policy can help scale and protect the challenges that the private and public sector is facing and addressing on a day-to-day basis.
And within that policy itself, I mean, what discussions do you hope will influence our participants to advocate for these changes?
Yeah, so we have a lot of policy folks coming in, especially we have the United Nations Disaster Risk Reduction team coming in place. They are the world's best climate resilience team. They are representing, and they're going to be talking about opportunities and resources available. We're going to also have a lot of other private and public corporations that are involved in resilience, not only from a country or a region resilience, but corporate resilience. So today we have dedicated roles called Chief Corporate Resilience Officers. Typically, we have Chief Risk Officer, Revenue Officer, Financial Officer, but nowadays, Chief Corporate Resilience Officer is critical, who needs to work with private markets and governments and policies to ensure that the climate resilience work is done in a long-term basis. So you have a global UNDRR representation, you have public and private companies representation, and you also have local government representation that will be there at the summit.
Wow. I mean, everyone, so before I dive into the next question, everyone, if anyone wants to attend, especially any students in the master's program or any college students, I mean, this is open for everyone. And what I love about this, Buva, is that you're giving them access to all of this information. So how can everyone find you?
Yes, so there are a lot of ticketing types available. So we want to make it as inclusive and as expansive as possible. So there are active students and professors discounted options in terms of ticketing available. You still have access to everything, but at a discounted rate. Similarly, startup teams, not only founders, their team members, have separated discount tickets for the reason we need them in the room so that these solutions can scale and they can network with institutions and investors. Additionally, investors also have discounted tickets, because if investors are not in the room, how can we enable the solutions to be invested and scaled? So if you are an active investor at any stage between pre-seed all the way to series or IPO level, you are welcome. Your teams are also welcome. You have discounted tickets. In addition, we have a lot of opportunities for NGOs and nonprofits. Like I mentioned, United Nations, World Economic Forum, New York City, EDC, and so on and so forth. So if you are part of those, you are also welcome, because like I mentioned, we need the collaboration between the public, private, and the policy sector, right? So you can go to getwalletmax.com/summit and then find out various options and find out which is the right ticket for you and have a one-click purchase.
This is great. And again, everyone, there's multiple ways to get involved in the summit. There's multiple ways. Okay, so there's always a success story. And I would love to hear a success story on your end, because I know people want to know like why these case studies are essential, but I would love for you to share one.
Yeah, exactly. So I'll give you two examples that I've been personally also a part of. One is in New York City. We all know the superstorm Sandy that happened a few years back. But after that, what we have done is we have built sufficient coastal defense infrastructure. In the sense, it has reduced flood risk in the last couple of years for 400,000 residents. We learned from Superstorm Sandy. We built resilience and coastal defense infrastructure, and now it is helping us to reduce the flood risk. We still have a long way to go as to how we can eliminate flood risk, but we are at a reduced flood risk strategy. That's one success story. Another thing is in California, we've seen recurrent wildfires happening. Sometimes, like I earlier mentioned, it's very difficult to predict or even give enough warning time so that we are able to take some action. One of the challenges is now being eliminated using AI, artificial intelligence, so that we can predict the fire spread and guide evacuations. That also kind of saves lives and reduces damages, because in some of these scenarios, the cost of inaction at the right time is the most damaging part of it, right? So these are two case studies: one, infrastructure in terms of building coastal defense, and other in terms of using artificial intelligence to eliminate some of the challenges in evacuating people at the right time.
Wow. Wow. And what is the second one? Because that was all about Sandy.
Yeah, so the first one is about Sandy. The second one is about the California wildfire.
Okay. Okay. Because I'm sorry, everyone. My headphones went out for that one. But okay. As long as everyone else heard that one. Okay. So again, we touch on community involvement. What role do you see for community engagement in climate resilience planning? And how will the panel promote inclusive approaches?
Yeah, so one of the things we don't really pay attention to is some of these climate resilience investments. They not only avoid losses, but they are able to create jobs in engineering, construction, technology, public health, right? So it's not just the cost of spend in building resilient systems, but it also how it's driving and scaling and replicating some of the economic benefits for people at large. It is also helping to protect assets, safeguard people. So some of those challenges are also being built on top of spending on the resilient approaches. So we should think of resilient approaches as an investment for a long-term sustainable future instead of thinking of it as a cost that's one time for today. How communities can help. So the great example is you can come talk to other resilient experts who are doing this more globally and locally, both at the federal level and at the UN and World Economic Forum kind of organization level. Other thing is the neighborhood based resilience hubs, right? So in your small local community, right now we have cooling centers, charging stations during disasters. But if we are able to double that up in partnership with community centers, so right now most of it is done by the government locally at the moment. But if we are able to engage communities and local voices to build these solutions, then you can have twice the number of cooling centers. You can have twice the number of charging stations in a disaster.
Wow. That's wow. Okay. Technology innovation. Why are technology advancements vital in our efforts towards climate resilience? And what innovations do you anticipate during the discussion during this panel?
Yeah, so like I mentioned earlier, in California, due to the wildfire situation, we are using artificial intelligence to try to predict the spread of fire and also try to evacuate people a little bit more ahead of time to prevent damage. One of the additional things there also is, before I dive into technology, the indigenous community in California also has traditional knowledge, and it can work with science and technology hand in hand because they have had those approaches of preventing wildfires for centuries. And if we are not considering traditional approaches along with technology and science, then we are not able to reap the full benefit in time, right? So that's where communities, technology, science, and indigenous and traditional knowledge comes into picture. As usual, AI is the top technology at the moment. There could be more in future, like quantum and others. But at the moment, more AI-driven flood forecasting, early warning apps, resilient housing materials, or even distributed energy systems. So they are all brand new innovations that are available today. But the challenge is how can we scale it so we can offer those benefits to communities. And that's one of the reasons, even though technology exists, innovation exists, investment is required so that the technology can really fulfill its purpose for the broader set of people. And also we have a lot of IoT devices that are gadgets that will help us in terms of microgrids, so that small neighborhoods can still be powered in terms of a broader outage. So you can kind of have micro grids powering a small neighborhood, even though an entire city is out of power. And these are all possible using the technologies we have today. And this is only just a start because there are a lot of new technologies that are still in development. Like I mentioned, the challenge is working with communities and helping with their traditional knowledge, connecting with science and technology, but definitely bringing in more private and public investments.
Well, and what do you see? What do you foresee happening, like forecast wise?
Yeah, yeah. So one of the things, like we already mentioned at the start, the traditional business ROI models do not account for some of these challenges in their day-to-day operations. But now even insurance companies and credit rating agencies are trying to factor in these assessments. As an example, if you're trying to buy a house and get a mortgage or a home insurance, your insurance company is going to assess, are you in the right zone that doesn't have enough environmental disasters. So whether you like it or you do it, it doesn't matter if you need a house to live in and if you need an insurance to protect you in that house. Your insurance company is going to ask you a question: did you consider all the environmental factors? So that's the upcoming trend. From a business perspective, again, we have all the credit ratings and the trading platforms that are existing. We have consumer credit as well as capital markets credit. All these rating agencies are including resilience into their assessments, meaning if you know that there is going to be a climate challenge in a particular location, why are you not building resilience into your profit models?
Mm.
That's a red flag for investors to invest in you as a person or as a company, because you are already kind of ignoring the risk that's being forecasted using a lot of technologies already available. So no longer it's okay to say, hey, I took an investment from certain investors and I can tell them, hey, due to a natural disaster I lost the investment. The investor is going to question, we have a lot of technologies available today, what were you doing not thinking
Yeah.
about how we could have prevented it, right? So those are the emerging trends in addition to other technologies that I mentioned, where whether it directly affects you in terms of a personal or a business perspective, you're going to get questions from your insurers, investors, credit rating agencies, and others.
That's great. And I mean, I was already going to ask that question, but you went a little deeper here. And especially to prepare for the future, because a lot of the next generation, they are looking to buy a home and they're not realizing what's going to happen. So I do think that in the future, just in general, like what you have to bring to the table for the Emerald Summit, anyone's going to have a great takeaway from each
Yeah,
panel that you put together.
yeah, exactly. So, as the saying goes, if you're not taking action today or planning for it today, both from an individual as well as from a company or even corporation or government perspective today, you're already too late in taking action, because it's not something you can say, hey, okay, I will look at it in 5 years. You may not have to look at anything in 5 years because the problem might have gone beyond control and you might not be able to mitigate or put some protections in place. So that's why it's really important to continue to take action in a small scale and collaborate with other experts in this space at events like this, and then take action.
Yes. Yes. Now, what is one last word that you would love to share with everyone today?
Yeah, definitely. So one last thing is it's all about human security, right? We're not talking about protecting buildings or protecting manufacturing plants or protecting neighborhoods. We are trying to talk about how we can secure human lives that are dependent on some of this infrastructure. So it's really important to think about it from a people perspective. What kind of solutions are we putting in place? How are we protecting them? And how are we securing our future? So I'd say, in one word, it's all about human security.
Yeah. Yes. And thank you, Buba. Thank you so much for just, again, creating this community, creating this space for other experts to come in and share their knowledge so we all can have a sense of what to look forward to in the future and how to activate with everyone. Thank you.
Yeah, we have like 40 speakers and 15 different programs. Everyone has been very generous with their time because they also believe in the mission that if we don't take action today, then it's too late. So I look forward to seeing
Yes.
everyone at the summit. Getwalletmax.com/summit, GETWALLETMAX.com/summit.
Yes, yes. And also, everyone, just to know, share this with your friends. Share it with your friends. I mean, you just don't have to go it alone with this. Have other friends come too, so you guys can walk out together knowing what you can make an impact in your own
Yeah, there
community.
are variety of ticketing options, trying to be as inclusive and broad so that we bring everyone together required to find solutions.
Yes, yes. Well, thank you so much, Buva, for your time today. Thank you, everyone who's joined us today. And I look forward to seeing everyone on Friday, September 19th at the summit.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks to you. See you, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.